Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Well, we had a cold night last night, going down to -4 degrees Celsius or 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's head outside and see how the trees did in the poly house and the glass greenhouse. Before I head outside, I'm going to show you an exciting update. Tom from the YouTube channel Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors sent me some dragon tree seeds and they're germinating. I've got two little shoots coming up. There's one right here and one over here. So that's exciting. I am greeted with snow on the ground today and it is quite cold out. I can feel it. So let's go in the glass greenhouse and see how everything's going. Here we go. Warmer in here, that's for sure. So, let me check the temperature. It is 12 degrees Celsius in here, and I'm going to check the overnight low. 9 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty good. Stayed quite warm in here. That's awesome. Let's check the poly house now. Okay, here we are. It feels warm in here too. It looks like it's about 5 degrees Celsius in here, so it's a little cooler than the glass greenhouse, but still well above freezing, so that's good. All the trees look good. Awesome. The apple's really coming out. That's kind of cool. All right, well, that's a relief that everything did quite well tonight. Tonight is also going to be a cool night. I think it's 1 degree warmer, but still well below freezing. So I'll have to keep them all tucked away for another 3 or 4 days. Yeah, a snowy day. There's the boxwoods down there. I have the insurance on the truck now, so I could drive it. I don't know if I feel like driving it on this cold day. The Matrix 2, it's back on the road for the summer. I think I'll wait till it's warmer. Today I'm going to be working on my mixed planting, my larch and black spruce forest. That's a bog style planting. If we come in and look at the forest, you can see the larch shoots are growing really long. They need pruning back. The black spruce, you can see the new spring growth come in. Also getting very long, needs pinching to keep it short and compact. And you can see on the black spruce, the lower branches are very weak and the upper ones are very strong. So pinching will also equalize that vigor. So someday, hopefully, the entire tree grows with equal vigor from the lowest branches to the upper ones. I'm going to do a little pruning on the dead wood just to make it look a little more miniature. Kind of maybe bring back some of these tall branches at the top. So not a lot of work to do on the dead wood, and then the moss, you can see it's also gotten very, very thick. It's growing in quite well. I've got a little weeding to do in there. I see some fairly large weeds, and some of these weeds up front are getting too tall. I've got to prune those back. The new larch that I added has a strong shoot up top on it, but the lower branches, some of them have kind of died off a bit, but there is some growth on the lower branches, which is encouraging. So I think thinning out some of these other larches will give it a little more light and encourage it along. It's it may take, a year or two before it gains full strength. I'm going to start the pruning with this larch that's out front here. So here's the apex of the tree, and you can see the new growth is quite long on the apex. As I go down the tree, the branches get less and less vigorous. So At the apex here, I can prune this branch quite short because all the vigor is in the apex, so I'll prune it off to here. And I always leave some needles of the new growth in place. And then as I go down, I'll prune off less and less on the branches. So here's another shoot in the apex that I can prune back, like that. And of course, I've got to taste the larch tips. All right, let's try a larch tip out and see how it tastes. It's not bad. Yeah, actually it's quite good. These tips in spring are fairly sweet. They have that kind of coniferous taste to them, that sort of resin taste to them, but they're not bad. You are what you eat, so that makes me a larch tree. So I'll keep going on the pruning of the larch, keeping my conical shape. I'm trying not to cut through needles, but you know, that one's from the tree behind. I'll prune that off too. On the branches, you can see the formation of new buds, but you don't have to prune to a bud. They will form new buds along any of these needles. That's what I found anyway. So down low here, there's a fairly vigorous shoot. So I'll prune that one back. I don't have to touch a lot of these shoots. Maybe this one a little off the tip and here. But a lot of these have developed nice compact growth, so I don't need to prune the tips off them. They're looking good. You can see, I think there's 3 trees in here, and they formed one big clump of foliage. So I'll need to prune them so I can see the individual shapes of the trees. So I'll prune up the ones behind this main tree, come back and see what it looks like, and if I have to prune back a little further, maybe I can. All right, let me find the apex of this tree. It's up here, so prune it back short in the apex. Now, when you prune these to a conical shape, you're kind of keeping that cone of vigor. I mean, you're pruning, to keep the conical shape, you're pruning the upper branches back harder and the lower ones less. So you can pretty well do a hedge prune and you'll get, you know, that conical shape, and you'll balance the vigor in the tree over time. You can see the needles are nice and long on these larches because they're in a greenhouse and they're being fed and watered well, so they're nice and lush and green. If they were outside on the bench, the needles might be a little shorter, depending how much you fed them and watered them. Generally, the more water, the more growth you get on these larches. If you water them really well, you'll get, maybe 3 or 4 flushes of growth per year on the larch. So you can get a lot of ramification quickly on them. Oh, there's the sun coming out. That's so nice. It may be cold outside, but it's sunny. So these larches, I'm growing them right to the ground level, the branches, so I can't get in to see how many trunks there is in there. So sort of a natural forest style where the branches go right to the ground. Now some forests, deer eat the lower branches, so you do naturally get the trunk line showing. But a lot of these natural forests, the branches go all the way to the ground. And if you watch that video where we walked through the bog forest, that was the case, that all the trees had their branches right down to the ground. It's kind of cool to see. So here's a branch, an upper branch, and you can see how long it is. Very vigorous in the upper part of the trees, and as you go lower, you get
very short branch compared to these long ones. So a forest like this, if you don't do regular maintenance on it, all the trees will just become one big green blob, and all these lower branches will die off because they're not going to get light. So you've really got to manage a small miniature forest like this. It can quickly become overgrown, and you'll ruin all that fine branching you're trying to develop, all that kind of lower branching and all your ramification. The tops will just take off and they'll shade out the lower part of the tree, and you'll get these tall trees with no foliage down below.
The weeds look okay when they're young, but as they get larger, they get out of scale with the planting. So the bigger ones need to be pulled out. These ones can just be pruned back, these weeds up front here. So I'm just still pruning branches, trying to get some separation between the trees. With these needles on the larch, every time you get a new flush of growth, the needles come out smaller in size. So your last set, your fourth flush, if you get that, will be the smallest needles, and those are the ones, if you're showing this in fall, those are the needles you want to keep on the trees so they look super miniature. So generally, if you're showing larches, the best time of the year to show them is in early spring, just as the needles are coming out. Is really good. You've seen them in a video where I showed you how miniature it looks. And then in fall is also another time when they've got the smaller needles and they're getting their fall colors, or they've got their fall colors, where they turn that golden yellow color. They're just really spectacular in fall. Okay, I'm getting some separation in the trees. You can also pinch these new shoots. You don't have to scissor prune them. You can just grab them tip and pinch out the tip on them. Works quite well. Now another technique that I used last year was some needle thinning. So up in the apex here, I can just pull off some of the needles to thin it out. That's in the apex where it's the most vigorous, so. And it helps to kind of control the vigor on your larches. These larches are deciduous trees, so they lose their needles in fall. So they can be totally defoliated. I've never tried total defoliation on a larch. I've heard of people who have done it, and they said they kind of had mixed results. It took a long time for the new needles to grow in, and they came in very small and very weak, and they weren't sure it was that good for the tree. So you can see I'm pulling these long needles out, and you kind of see the shape of the trees once again, that they're not just big kind of shaggy overgrown trees. They're a little more compact looking. So you can see that front tree looks quite nice. It's compact, conical, not too overgrown. So I'll do a little more needle thinning on this tree behind it. And you don't have to worry about, if you trim through the needles, if you break a needle in half, the new growth will come out fairly quickly on these larches. Within probably a couple of weeks, you'll start to see the new shoots growing on the branches. So you can replace that older foliage with the new foliage that comes in. On this tree back here, there's a dead branch I'm going to remove. That's on that new one I planted. The rest of it looks quite good. So the larch are definitely a faster growing species than the black spruce behind them, but I think with proper management, I should be able to keep the larches in check so the trees are kind of stay in proportion with each other. That's what I'm hoping. That the larches don't get, twice as big as the spruce trees in the background. I'm trying to grow them so they kind of grow equally in proportion. And my goal isn't to grow them into,
giant tall trees. I just want to kind of maintain the shape they have.
Now I've got to try a spruce tip. They're also good in spring, so I'll pinch off a tip here. There's a spruce tip, and try eating that. All right, here goes my spruce tip. Different flavor than the larch, is more, I'd say slightly more sweet and a little sharper. And more aftertaste for sure, yeah. But not bad. They make spruce tip jam. It's common up north, so people go up and pick all the spruce tips off in spring and they make jam out of it. So it's not bad tasting. If you get the chance in spring, try a spruce tip. Don't try them anytime other than spring because they taste quite awful. But in spring, they've got a slight sweet taste to them. Using the same techniques, I'll finish pruning up all the larch trees. We'll come back and have a look at it, and then we'll start on the spruce. I have finished pruning up the larch trees in the forest. It's really fun working on this. It really gives me the impression of being in a forest. It's incredible, actually. I hope you can see that on video, that it looks just like you're walking in a forest or something. Yeah, so they're pruned up quite nicely. There's the one larch here. These larches look good. Now I left this shoot long. I'm growing one of those lower branches up vertical, like another tree beside the larch. And the one that I just planted this year back there is also left pretty well unpruned, just to gain vigor, catch up with the rest of the larch in the forest. I'll give you an overhead shot too, so you can kind of get an idea of the spacing of the trees. I did a little bit of weeding too. There's a bit of liverwort and some of that Irish moss that I picked out. So next, I'm going to tackle the spruce trees, the black spruce. The techniques for the black spruce are exactly the same as the larch. You want to pinch to get that conical form and eat them. That was a good one. So you can either scissor prune or pinch. These are very soft growth, so I think I'll do pinching on them. Pinching and eating. So some of the trees I don't need to do a lot of work on. There's just some of the shoots are long. These small ones I don't have to touch. And I'm just going to prune them back to a conical form, just like I did for the larch. This way I don't have to take a lunch break when I go inside. I can just have my lunch as I work away out here. I'm also going to do a little pruning. I'm always looking for, better branching and buds. So here's one where I have a bud on the outside of the branch, so I can prune off the top of it. Getting the branch to fan out a little more like you would see on a spruce. I'm scissor pruning these because it's really hard to get in here with my fingers. So I've kind of got these trees pruned up. I'm going to turn the forest around so I can work on the back side of it. Like that. Oh, I can see some liverwort in here at the back. Yeah, so I can get at the trees a little more easily from the back side here. It sure is nice seeing the new shoots on a spruce come out. They contrast really nicely with the older needles. And I'm not sure how many flushes of growth I'll get on the spruce. If it'll be similar to the larch where I get, a couple, 3 or 4 each summer. We'll see. We'll see how they do. And some people, these needles bother their skin, so you might want to wear gloves if that's the case. Sometimes you can get, if you're working on pines or junipers, you can kind of get a rash on your skin. All the needles kind of prickling your skin.
get a bit of a reaction. So you might want to wear gloves. This tree's got nice, small, soft growth on it. Really cool. So some of these I am going to scissor prune. They're really hard to get in with my fingers to pluck them off accurately, especially in the apex area here. I kind of want to prune them quite short. So some of these ones are just developing. They may elongate later on, so I might have to come back to this and pinch them off as they develop. So sometimes I'm not cutting through the needles. I'm just reaching in with the scissors, and you just kind of pull the tip out with the scissors. So it's kind of like having nimble fingers. So you don't cut through needles, you're just kind of shaping the tree with a lot of precision. More than I could do with these fat fingers. Really in that apex down there. And I'll have to do some shoot selection in the apex too. You don't want so much vigor. I do want that kind of arrow shape that I was talking about in an earlier video on the top of my black spruce. So I'll always try for that. And just like with the larch, always leave some of the new growth on the shoots. If you prune them right away, you really weaken the tree and it could kill off the branch. So these ones down low, the growth on them is very short, so I'm just leaving those parts of the tree alone. There's a lot of new shoots on these spruce, and I'm able to shorten a lot of the long spruce branches back to growth that's further back on the branches. Kind of shortening them, making them more compact in a tighter cylindrical form on the tree. So it's kind of exciting being able to, do some tree shaping. Get them more compact. And I have to keep them compact because I got to keep each individual tree form without them all running into each other. So here's some long branches here that are starting to get in the way of the tree beside it. So I got to prune those back. This one back too. Create some space between the trees. Yeah, so as I'm pruning away, I'm doing a little branch selection. Take that right off. There's two branches growing from one spot here. I'll take this one off too. Gives more light to this tree, or this branch, and gets it more compact too. Yeah, to do shaping on trees, you need good strong growth and lots of back budding. I'm also removing any shoots that are kind of growing in towards the center of the tree. Doing a little selection as I go. It is snowing outside. Ice pellets or something. There's still snow outside on the benches out there. It's not melting today. I have finished pruning up the black spruce, so you can still see the bright green new tips growing on the trees. And kind of the separation between the trees. Some branch selection, removing shoots that were growing in towards the tree or straight up. Yeah, just slowly kind of refining the trees. Really interesting landscape. It changes every time I look at it. New plants grow in. It's kind of cool. Sure feels like you're in a forest when you're working on this. So this is the back of the planting. I'll turn the forest around and we'll have a look from the front. Here is the front of the forest now. Spruce back there look good.
I'm going to continue on the forest now, refining the deadwood a bit on the trees, kind of pruning it back, getting that conical kind of form, but I'll keep all the natural kind of sweeping branches, just a little cleanup. All right, let's get some of this cleaned up. I'm just going to shorten all these little branches up top, give it more of a conical form. Hopefully a little bit more of a miniature look. There's one branch going right over top of the larch here. I'm going to take part of that branch off. Like that. Give that larch a little more room to grow. Now, I think there's just some of these branches are a little cluttered here. I'm going to take this one right out. It's a little too cluttered in that section. That's looking much better. Just shorten some of these ones back here. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's looking good. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I think the dead trees are looking quite nice. I'm looking at the moss thinking, do I need to prune it? It's getting quite long, but it looks quite natural too. It looks like a forest that's just, you know, in springtime everything grows and it becomes, the forest floor gets very dense. So I don't think it's, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for the work on my bog forest or mixed forest for today. Let's go in now and explore the forest. I really enjoyed working on my northern bog style forest this afternoon. It was a lot of fun detailing it and pruning it up and making it look very miniature once again. There's 2 spots still available for the Brazilian Rain Tree Workshop in Hamilton this coming Saturday. So if you're in the area and you're interested in Brazilian rain trees, sign up for the workshop and we'll have a fun evening of pruning up the trees and repotting them and learning all about Brazilian rain trees. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.